Roger, thanks for stopping by, and this is part 2 of my July update. A row of Tolumnias. Now they live up there. Obviously if I film up there you'll get silhouettes, so as I've just watered them I thought I'd grab them while they're down here. I'm not doing names, they get brought out, named and shamed when they decide to bloom, but these vary from very small little plants to single fan but big plants to multiple fans. There's a variety. Some of these were bought as very young plants, and I think I got 5 from Wickman or something like that in Germany, and they came as small plants, some of which had virtually no roots, so they're taking a while to get a hold. However, this is one of them, and I mean that one's pushed on leaps and bounds. That's a really good fan. It's a lovely strong fan. Now get on and flower. We want the flowers. Okay, so there's a little row there that live up on high. Some others. Some more live up on high, literally up here in the roof. Again, those haven't been watered, they're due to come down. Some are young plants, just pushing on new fans and trying to push out some roots. Some are good strong plants with good root systems. Another good strong plant there coming on. And little diddy one up the end, but nonetheless that's probably as big as it's going to get. We'll see. And one's in bloom. Excuse me. We've got this species one here with the ridiculously long flower spike heading up into the distance with the lovely yellow flowers on. Now that not only branched, but now the branches are branching. So that's been in flower a long time and will continue to be so. The little last dying bloom there goes with this plant here, and this is on its last legs too. So nonetheless, good plant. Okay, and the only other Tolumnia I've got is tucked in there, and that is a strange one. This has tiny little plantlets, and it grows like a bush. It's really weird, and it would be wonderful if it would actually produce some flowers because they're a really unusual colour. But so far it hasn't flowered. Now that always lived up in the roof and hasn't flowered, and it's a mature plant. So it's come down out the roof now. We're going to give it a try with a bit less light and a bit less heat and see if I can kick that into bloom. We'll see what happens. So little group of Tolumnias, as I say, they are one of my favourite orchids. They used to be called equitant oncidiums, and it's difficult to see these leaves unless I twist them. They're not flat, they're triangular, and they are incredibly succulent and sturdy beasts. That's how they grow, and as a consequence they can hold a lot of water despite having no pseudobulbs. Like a succulent, the plant itself can store water. And I mean, where they grow naturally, they're right out on the end of twigs, sometimes in full sun, and their roots have evolved to run along under little twiglets and branches and hide from the sun and just grab any moisture they can get hold of. So for me, they're dead easy because I don't mind mounts. The roots must dry fast. If you keep those roots soggy, they will rot. Then you lose your root system and potentially your plant. So yeah, dry fast. You can water them well every day if they're on a mount like this and dry fast. Some days they don't get watered. If we had a dull, cool day, the next day they're still slightly damp, so no water. Not until that moss is crispy dry do they get watered. Now in the summer when it's nice and the weather's good, that will be every day. In the winter time that could be every 3rd, 4th or even 5th day. Okay, so that's how I look after them. I wait till they're thoroughly dry, then they get thoroughly wet. And that's how I look after them. Bright light and a reasonable amount of heat. They don't need it boiling hot. They're not warm. They're intermediate in the main. So yeah, if you grow intermediate and you've got good light, you can grow these. They can grow in a tiny little open basket with some very open mix. I've seen them growing in lava rock very well. Seen them growing in big chunky bark, but not too much of it. Don't bury the roots. Let some see the light of day, let some see the air, and they'll do fine. And they do have pretty little flowers. In all shape, well, I won't say shapes, they're very similar, but in all colours, from Very, very dark, right through to pales and yellows and pinks and purples and reds. Wonderful patterns, wonderful little plants. One of my favourite little set of plants. So, Tolumnias. This is my only Encyclia. This is Prismatocarpa, I think that's pronounced, and it's doing wonderful things at the side there. That's a smashing new growth. There's a possible new growth around the other side as well. Not definite, but looks like it may kick on. Reasonable roots, good sized plant. Again, it was an offshoot from a specimen plant, so the previous mature bulbs had actually flowered, and we're hoping for wonderful things from that new growth, because that's a good strong new growth. Let's hope it pushes on and we get some wonderful Encyclia flowers. Okay, my only Encyclia. Okay, Epidendrums next. I've only got a couple, and this was effectively a lifesaver. This was a plant that was huge once upon a time and started to push some kikis out, and for some reason the plant just collapsed. It failed. It keeled over at a rate of knots. Never found out why. Roots didn't look awful. They weren't brilliant, but it just gave up basically. So I took a couple of kikis off, and they'd been sat in this pot for a long time and done nothing. But just recently it's decided to kick a few roots out, so maybe it'll push on. This is one of those that flowers from the top in a column of quite small delicate flowers that have the appearance of a crucifix. They're upside down with a frilly lip, and they form like a cross. Radicans, I think, is the typical sort of shape. And this is a pale orangey colour. It's nothing special, it's nothing spectacular, but I didn't want to lose it. There's a plant I'd had for quite a long time when I didn't have many orchids, so a couple of kikis. And then there's this thing over here that I know so little about. It's disgusting that I still haven't looked up what I'm supposed to be doing with this. This is Epidendrum nocturnum. And this did nothing for a very long time, and then it started this new growth not too long ago. And along with that new growth, it pushed out some nice roots, one that's attached and buried its head in the sand or in the bark. This one did suffer a bit and lost a couple of root tips, but nothing major, and it's now pushing out a few nice shiny new roots. So that's my two Epidendrums, short and sweet. Okay, from the very small to the very big. I thought I'd knock out my nobile types, mainly because I've just gotten down to water them, and this will be disjointed. Now, one thing worth noting. New growth on nobiles are mealybug magnets. Oh, I do take great delight in squashing those big ones. But I've already gone over that plant once. That's one I missed. Yeah? Now, I didn't spray it because it only had a couple on it. However, this one's just had a spray because the two new growths on there had quite a few mealybugs, so that's actually had a spray. Now, this one's worth noting. For those of you who don't know, certainly on Dendrobiums, you see that silvery sheen on that leaf? That's the residue of spider mite damage. They are ex-spider mites, they have ceased to be, but that's what they leave behind. Yeah, that is hundreds if not thousands of tiny little puncture wounds, and that's what it looks like. So for those of you who've never seen spider mite damage, have a look at some. That's a very rare occurrence in my environment. They don't like it much in here. So although I get the odd little outbreak, shall we call it, I don't get much trouble with spider mites. And most of my noblies have just been repotted. That one's just been repotted and it's gone, whoopee! Nice new media. We'll have some of that and we'll chuck out some nice new roots. That's what they do, along with the new growths. This is also typical nobile, flowering out of season, so it's also going to push some buds out. Okay, so that's just a no ID nobile. Not my best one. I need to have a look into why I'm getting some black bits on there. But that's the oldest cane. It's pushing up some new canes. This is another no ID. Gone mad this year. New growth. New growth. New growth. New growth, and there's another one round the back. All of those are this year's canes They will flower early next year, given the right care, which in my case is no care at all. My nobiles flower without a winter rest. However, they're going to get one this year. So instead of getting a trickle of flowers for a very long time, we might get a mass blooming. But it's an experiment. I shall wait and see. They've all flowered without a rest in the past, so I won't fail to get flowers. I'll either get more at once or they'll be the same as they were before. No big deal. So a couple of unnamed ones. Quick break while I move them out of the way and get some more out. And this monster is Prima Donna. This has only just gone out of flower from January. This has flowered constantly. Just been repotted and got new growth, new growth, new growth, new growth, new growth. And a couple of last year's canes that didn't flower much. So they will fill in the gaps basically. Nobiles do this. Between each leaf they push out their blooms. When there aren't any nodes left, that cane is finished blooming. But as you can see on that cane I'm looking at now, that's bloomed halfway down, which means the lower half hasn't, which means it still will. Now it may do that later this year, it may do it next year, but on this particular variety it will bloom from virtually every node at some point. So it has a sort of massive go near the top, and then it does it in dribs and drabs down the rest of the cane, and plenty of new canes to fill in the gaps next year. This one's a recent acquisition. This is Wedding Bells. This was a one-off eBay purchase basically. It's a nice plant. It had reasonable roots on it. I won't say brilliant, but perfectly acceptable for a nobile. And it's got a couple of new canes on it, here, and I'm not sure, no, I think they're just older, smaller canes. Okay, so a couple more nobiles. Let's get them out of the way and get some more. There's a few. Okay, last couple of nobiles. This is Stardust Firebird. This is far from my best looking plant, but having a look round at other people that have got this, nobody seems to have a good looking one of these. If you have, I'd love to see it. But it has pushed out some new canes from the base, but this one is prone to kikis. Here we have a quite large kiki. It's coming off very soon. I'm just waiting for a little bit more root activity. Given the size of the kiki, it needs better roots, as does this one. It's been allowed to grow on deliberately because I want to start, oh, there's a third one in there, so I've got 3 good sized kikis, all with nearly enough roots to take off now. So I'll start my usual process of making those roots wet frequently to acclimatise them to being wet basically, and then when they go in a pot they won't object so much. But yeah, not the best of plants. Had a really bad mealybug attack when I wasn't looking, and again, you know, once the damage is done, it's done. There was another little kiki there. Only just hanging on, that one. Yeah, so not my best plant, but worth keeping because it has very nice blooms on. Now this is a nobile type that's being silly, and I'm still not quite sure what the flipping thing's up to. It only had a couple of canes when I got it, and it was in bloom, and the blooms are wonderful. But that's what it's done. It's stuck out 3 growths. I will have to call them kikis, but they have no roots, so I can't take them off. Well, I could take a risk, but I doubt if they would make it. I've got to wait for roots, and if they don't push out roots, they'll have to stay on the plant, and they will just be classed as new growths that have grown out the side of a cane. Now, somewhere back in that thing's genes is something odd to make it do that. But nonetheless, those are 3 nice new growths. There's no reason why they can't stay there and they'll flower. I'd certainly rather that they actually grew roots and can come off and start a new plant. And then last but not least in this category is my shiny new Comic King Kiki. That's not been in the pot long enough to have done anything yet. It's only just gone in there. But it had a couple of roots that were very viable, and with that amount of moss, I think that should push on nicely. So that's the nobiles, and yeah, quite a few, some giants and some smaller ones. They all flower for me, well, except for those that haven't had a chance yet. Some do better than others, but they all do reasonably well. So I find nobiles easy. None of them have ever had a winter rest, and they've always bloomed. So of the Dendrobiums, I find them easy because I can get away without resting them. However, this year they will get that winter rest. Okay, nobiles, a part of the Dendrobium section, but easily broken off and done separately. So, nobiles. Okay, I'm separating this one out. This is my only Loria type Dendrobium, recent acquisition, recently repotted. It's Nora Tokunaga, which I am told by TD is a good one to have. But a question for those who know, who've had the plant or own the plant: what size is this plant supposed to be? That's my hand, and I don't have big hands. It's a small plant. Now I don't know what size it's supposed to be. So is that a tiny little seedling? Is that sort of part way to maturity? Is it a miniature? Is it going to grow much bigger than that? So open-ended question. Those of you that have this particular variety, it's no good having a different variety because some are big, some are little. So if you've got this one and you know this plant intimately, you know, taking it to dinner and all that sort of stuff, and you know it well, how far away from blooming size is that? Tiny seedling? Halfway there? Couple of years to go? Give us a clue, because I haven't got a clue. I haven't got a clue. It's my first Loria. I don't know how big they get. But in this particular case, how far off is that one? Information would be gratefully received in the comments. And thanks for helping if you can. Cheers. Okay, this one lives on its own. It's an Oncidium type, basically, or what was it once upon a time? I think actually it might have been Odontoglossum once upon a time, but in that category. Big plant. These are dead scale because this one, as you can see, if you touch a scale and it just comes off without any pressure or anything, it's dead. And this gets sprayed on and off in various places because it will not give up the scale. It's got basically the whole plant's been soaked with the soapy stuff, and I'm still seeing the odd one, but I'm on top of it now. So, and luckily the scale doesn't do too much harm because the leaves are so leathery. So I don't know why it's chosen that one really, but anyway, it's doing its thing. Recently repotted, well overdue when it was repotted, so it had sort of slowed down, almost stagnated. But since it's been repotted, it's pushed out. It's got a new growth there, and a nice big strong one there, and roots to go with it, and another one there with, you can probably just about see the roots heading down into the pot. So it's doing its thing. That is a spectacular giant flower. I think once upon a time the original, you know, the actual non-hybrid version, was actually called the clown orchid because it is just so bright, colourful and cheerful. Okay, so that's one. It's the only Rossioglossum I've got, but it is an Oncidium type in there somewhere. Originally started as Odontoglossum. I think the original was Odontoglossum grande, the clown orchid, and this is an offshoot of that. But it's pushing on now. If each one of those new growths pushes out a flower spike, the previous flower spike had 6 blooms on, and they're 5 inches across. They're enormous and brightly coloured, bright golden yellow with red banding and a waxy texture to them. It's a pretty spectacular plant. I was lucky not to lose that. It just got left in its pot too long. The dangers of acidic going off media. But it's recovered, doing well, coming on nicely. Okay, Restrepias. This is a recent gift that was handed over to me. Greatly appreciated. One to bring on. This Restrepia gutulata. Yeah, something like that. This is Falkenbergii. I've had this one a while. This comes and goes with its blooms. There's one just opening there, if that can focus, because they are quite small. Very pretty pattern on it. Lovely bright yellow and lovely bronzy coloured stripes. Strange growth habit. They push out a leaf, and then from most of the leaves they flower, and sometimes they push a kiki, or sometimes they extend their growth. They go all over the blinking place, quite honestly. So that's Falkenbergii. Let's get that out of the way. And then this one, I'll have to do a pop-up because the tag's either gone. Oh no, here it is. Here it is. It's actually here. Oh my God, are we going to try and say that? Antenifera memsliana. Of course it is. Easy for you to say. Again, this one is taking off. It was repotted. And look at those. It's a mass of tiny little fine roots in that pot. An absolute mass. And dripping all over the place because it's just been watered. And then this thing, this is Restrepiodes, dragonstone, and I think that's how you say it. And I haven't got a clue what to do with this, so it gets treated like a Restrepia simply because it sounds the same. And these leaves are heavy. They might look flimsy, but they're not. They're chunky and they're heavy, and because those leaves hang out that side, the flipping thing won't stand up. So it always has to be propped up against something. It's pushed out quite a few new leaves, yeah, so maybe it will flower one day. We shall see. So Restrepias and that thing, Restrepiodes, at least I think that's how you say it. Little group. Okay, Phalaenopsis. Yes, I do have some. Most of them live under here. Most of them are just hybrids, no ID. Sideria japonica there. That has got an ID, and quite a lot of mini ones, some in a state of recovery. I'm not going to get them all out. I will, however, show you these few though, because I do like mounted Phalaenopsis. Now this one's a bit twisty because he got badly desiccated because it wouldn't grow any roots, and I had a word with it and I said, you know, you got new leaves coming. If you don't grow new roots, you're going to die. Well, it's pushed out some roots now. So it's made it. However, its latest two new leaves, this one certainly, I don't think it's going to grow much more. It's a failure leaf basically. Maybe this one will push on, but now that it's got some roots, it should do much better. This one, however, decided to grow some roots. There, those have attached across there, and this one's now sitting nice and upright in its natural pose. Basically, that's how it would grow in the wild. Although that's far from a wild Phalaenopsis, it's just a no ID hybrid, but I like them mounted. There's another mounted one here that's adopted the position. This is pushing out some new roots too. So some have attached. So he's looking okay on his mount. This is Sweet Memory. The last three blooms, one per spike, are now looking tatty. Now, each one of these spikes has a new bud, and I know you're going to be horrified, but I'm going to take the spikes off. The reason I'm going to take the spikes off is because they're starting to elongate and they're getting too far away from the plant itself. And I need to repot it, so I'm going to do the whole thing all in one go. Now, I would love to mount this, I really would, but it is pretty big to stick on a mount. But it really does have beautiful leaves. But that is quite a big plant. A beautiful root system on it, but I don't like what it's in. You can see all that fibrous stuff, coconut stuff, and I want it out of there. Again, some would say, why is your Phalaenopsis right up in the bright light? Well, look again. The bright light comes in from over there, and that's behind all those plants. It's not in the bright light. There's a few other biggies lurking around down here on this shelf. Again, semi-shaded, they get a little bit of bright light at part of the day, but it's still filtered, it's still through other leaves. There's another big one lurking up the back there. So, yeah, there's a few around, but they're not doing much at the moment, most of them. This is the only one I've got, apart from Sweet Memory, that's actually in bloom. I've seen that one before. Nice yellow flowers. Again, needs to come out of that pot. I'm not sure what it's in, and when I'm not sure, but probably my best one at the moment is this white one. And guess what? That's not mine. That actually belongs to my daughter. It came down here for a repot. She's perfectly capable of repotting them herself, but why have two lots of media, two lots of pots, when I'm all geared up for it here? So basically, you know, I bring the plant down, repot it, and then she takes it back again. We've taken a little bit of a risk, but it is a good root system. It's gone in chunky bark and the flower spikes have stayed on, and I think they'll be fine. These are already branched flower spikes, so this did have upright flower spikes. It had 3, and basically they were taken off, and these 2 at the top branched sideways, 1 each way. So it's actually put on a second show on branched spikes that's actually quite good. You know me, I don't like branched spikes, but that looks pretty good. This one's the weak link, shall we say, just 1 flower on that one. That could come off effectively. Anyway, so Phalaenopsis, not my biggest collection, but they're lurking around, and hopefully as the cooler weather comes they'll start pushing spikes, and through the winter we'll have some colour. That's often what Phalaenopsis do. Let's just hope. So a lot of them are still struggling to get a root system because they were so bad, you know, compacted moss and all that nonsense. But they're all coming on. None of them are going to fail. They're all going to make it. So that's good. Okay, so that I'll leave that as the end of part 2. I'm hoping to get away with only 1 more part, but I might have to split it, so we might get as far as 4. But I can't do any more today. I'll try again and do a little bit tomorrow. So that's the end of part 2. Thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it all, and we'll move on to some other types of orchids in the very near future. Thanks for dropping by. See you again next time.